Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our last and final presentation on Microsoft Azure Synapse. So today, just quick recap of the agenda. We'll go through a quick introductions, and then Patrick Hall and Riwat Sharma are going to kind of take over the bulk of the presentation and go through what they've been working on these last few months around Azure Synapse and guide you through their process. So a little bit about MDS. Who are we? We were founded in 1994 as a 100% women-owned business. We were headquartered in New York City, but we have branch offices in Florida, Texas, and Puerto Rico. And we also have a pretty wide team of certified experts. And then we also work with quite a few different industry partners. So industries, we're not really constrained to one industry or even a few. We have capabilities in all different industries, and this is just a quick snapshot of some of the different verticals that we can work in. And like I mentioned, we have quite a few different partners. As you can see, we're a Microsoft Gold partner, and we also have quite a few different industry vendors that help us grow our business. Some awards. We've been recognized quite a bit in the last few years around Microsoft. As you can see, security and compliance, we won a few awards last year. Not listed are two of our most recent awards, and that was also in Latin America in regards to Jamaica and the Bahamas. So we're proud of being recognized for our achievements in those regions. And then, yeah, so this is a Microsoft presentation. So we do want to just give you a snapshot of our competencies. And as you can see, we are a Gold Data Analytics partner of Microsoft. So I'm going to hand this off to Patrick, who's going to give the bulk of the presentation and guide you through Azure Synapse.
Thanks, Sam. And good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us the last few months as we reviewed the Azure Synapse Analytics platform. With this, our third and final installment in our Synapse Summer webinar series, we're going to explore just how this unified data platform is poised to help data-driven organizations excel in today's modern workplace. Our focus, particularly with this webinar series, has been analyzing data streams in real time over social media platforms. And really, it's a concept that's born from today's need for fast-paced digital data. Enterprises depend on making quick and intelligent decisions. So this really requires them to analyze data streams from various sources in real time. So for example, they may want to monitor weather data from a sensor, financial data from the stock market, or in this case, social media reaction to a newly launched product or campaign. So as we've demonstrated throughout our webinar series, social media has become an increasingly important part of data-driven organizations' business intelligence strategy. Social media analytics is a discipline that can really help organizations formulate and implement measurement techniques for deriving insights from social media interactions, for evaluating the success of a multitude of outreach or marketing campaigns, or really overall sentiment of related organizational interests. So today, I'll be joined by our senior data scientists from our team here at MDS, Riwat Sharma, and we'll take a look at the various social media analytics experiments we've conducted over the last few months and really get a peek behind the curtain on developing the data science solutions for our webinar series. So to start out, Azure Synapse is a limitless analytics service. And what it does is it brings together the enterprise data warehousing and big data analytics on the Microsoft platform. So it gives you really the freedom to query data on your own terms, using either serverless on demand or provision resources at scale. Azure Synapse brings these two worlds together with a unified experience to ingest, prepare, manage, and serve data for immediate BI and machine learning needs. So, what Microsoft has really done is it's taken the leading data warehouse solution, Azure SQL Data Warehouse, really to a whole new level of performance and capabilities. So now businesses can continue to run their existing data warehouse workloads in production today with Azure Synapse, and really they then get to benefit from the new capabilities. Businesses can put their data in, to work much more quickly, productively, and securely, while pulling together insights from all data sources, data warehouses, and big data analytic streams. So as we take a look at the Azure Data and Analytics platform today, a number of organizations have a diverse range of data sources. And really, when combining it with a much more disparate workforce than just really a few mere months ago, whether it's on premise or other cloud line of business systems, being able to aggregate and provide some meaningful insight to your business really has become a struggle. So, there are a number of solutions on Azure that really allow companies to ingest data. For instance, as the Azure Data Factory does, perhaps being able to cleanse or wrangle vast amount of data, whether it's structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Azure Databricks allows you to perform ETL transactions all within the Azure infrastructure. And for the more familiar solution like Power BI, which is actually Microsoft's market-leading visualization tool, and then the data lake store for storage of that diverse corporate data set. All of the services that you see here support a modern data-driven business. So as we take a look at how Microsoft has really kind of improved upon Azure SQL Data Warehouse, there are a number of things that we can see today. First, it really now provides multiple compute pools over common shared data. It provides workload isolation and predictable performance for different teams within an organization. And I think that's one of the things that certainly, as we presented Azure Synapse and we work with customers really all over the world, we're beginning to see that unified platform, having all roles within an organization work together in a single place, has really been transformative. Another thing is, the transactional consistency of the data. It's guaranteed, so there's no silos created. Online scaling, it provides Synapse to adjust to compute resources allocated to a workload in real time without any interruption to running queries. The new cloud scale distributed query processor, it dynamically assigns resources to maximize query throughput, and it automatically rebalances compute as workload characteristics change. One experience for both the data warehouse and data lake, whether it's managing, monitoring, it really now is secured through a single platform experience. Another item, certainly one of the things that I think, as we kind of think of, cloud-based data platforms, cluster and serverless form factors, those are now flexible. It provides compute allocation to really suit the analytics workload. And really for me personally, having that one-click choice of SQL or Spark runtime within the single service enables any analytics of all data in one place. So really, let's describe how the modern data warehouse serves a business through a really simple architectural diagram like you see here. So the modern data warehouse really sits at the heart of enterprise analytics. So as a source of sanctioned data, as a system of record, or as a hub serving models for reporting, business intelligence, and data science. In the past few years, the enterprise has really settled on a hybrid approach to IT. So basically, some things happen in the cloud, some things happen on premise, right? And this really has been driven by the massive volumes of data and really the need to be able to use all of that data to power the business, right? Because again, if you're not really utilizing your data resources, it essentially becomes a cost center, right? And furthermore, really users want systems that work together without complexity. So, obviously over the last few months, as we've begun working in disparate locations, working from home, um, today's users really want the simplicity and really the seamless integration. And what we believe Azure Synapse provides is that unified platform. So whether it's a citizen developer, a data engineer, a data scientist, or a report writer, having that one place to where all of the data-driven roles can work has really been really resounding throughout the last few months in terms of users being able to find having that common place to work. So we're taking a look here at Azure Synapse Studio. And so as we kind of talk about that unified platform, Synapse Studio really brings together the ability to ingest, explore, analyze, and really visualize your data all through one user interface. So its user experience is very similar to the look and feel as Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks UI. So it's an end-to-end unified experience, but not only for data engineers, but for data scientists as well, right? So personally, when I began using Synapse Studio, I was a little bit uneasy because again, I come from the world of being familiar to navigate back and forth from SQL Server, Management Studio, then to the Databricks UI, and to the Azure portal. And so you kind of had your comfort zone. But I think, really in quick order, after utilizing Azure Synapse Studio, it really became apparent that now I have all of the solutions that I use as a data engineer right at my fingertip in this singular interface. And so, Microsoft really has built this UI with the users in mind, right? At its core, it leverages existing capabilities of other data services. Like I said, you may already use within the Azure ecosystem. And really, to me, it opposes to really introducing a completely new tool, because a lot of these solutions that you'll see and we'll demonstrate here in a little bit are very familiar. So as we discussed during our last webinar installment, Azure Synapse Studio really is, like we said, the single pane of glass, and it brings together big data analytics, data development, and data visualization. And while analytics are important, businesses can really do more and more complex analytics for better, faster, and more automated insights. And what we believe is Azure Synapse Studio really supports that. So now data science is enabled automated insight with a depth and scale really beyond the abilities of human analysts. Even small businesses today need scalable analytics, whether it's social media, digital interactions, markets. So increasingly, machine learning and artificial intelligence drive autonomous processes and decisions for smart organizations of all sizes. And as we take a look here, the Activity Hub, which when we go into the Azure Synapse Studio, on the left pane there that you see circled in red, it's an aggregation of specific tasks that are organized based on the actions relevant to creating, managing, analyzing, storing, transforming, and visualizing data. And then, Synapse Studio also is a web interface for you to be able to create files that contain live code, visualizations, and narrative text. So for those of you who are familiar with Jupyter Notebooks or even Azure Notebooks, Synapse Notebooks is really a good place to validate ideas and use quick experiments to get insights, from your data. So as you kind of take a look at this solution, it's very, very comparable to the solutions that we mentioned previously. And as we mentioned, notebooks are widely used in data preparation, data visualization, machine learning, and really all big data scenarios. In this area, you can manage your SQL pools, or you can create new ones. So as we see here in this dropdown, within our Azure Synapse Studio UI, you see that you can have the ability to create a new SQL script or create a new notebook. And so you can execute SQL workloads by using any of the provisioning forms. So whether it's SQL on demand or serverless, which essentially you pay only for the execution time of the queries, or it's provision, right? So you pay a fixed price for the number of data warehouse units allocated to the services. And with this, you can scale out and scale back as requested. And then you can start and really pause your provision SQL pools, right? And so as you see here, you can create new SQL pool really without leaving the Azure Synapse workspace. One of the other things, certainly, as we kind of talk about, SQL query, serverless, and visualization of resulting data sets in one view. As an enterprise system of record for business processes, the data warehouse is mostly built over a line of business systems. So Azure Data Factory, what it does is it schedules, orchestrate data transformations, and bulk loads. Meanwhile, Azure Databricks performs transformations specifically for data science and also builds and execute models. So scores from these models may be loaded into the data warehouse and to integrate with these insights with enterprise applications and reports. So here you can see kind of highlighted in red, the ability to be able to create a new notebook. Of course, here below, like we mentioned before, being able to utilize your particular, in this case, we're using PySpark against our Spark pool, we're able to conduct a number of data experiments right within that notebook. One of the things too, and of course, as we mentioned in the previous slide, where we use PySpark, Azure Synapse Studio notebooks, they support 4 languages. So as a case previously, when we mentioned PySpark, which of course is Python, Spark, which is Scala, then Spark SQL, and really the thing that to me, really kind of highlights and shows the diversity of the Synapse notebooks is .NET for Apache Spark, which is C#. So really, you can set the primary language for these new added cells from the drop-down list in the top command bar, as you see here. Now, Power BI, it consumes sanctioned enterprise data from the data warehouse reporting and analytics, but may also use data from the data lake for ad hoc analysis, integrating with data science. Many business services, including line of business applications, consume data from data warehouses as an authoritative, governed source of enterprise knowledge. And so what we'll show here in our solution walkthrough, Power BI reports really, they're available to be edited directly within the Azure Synapse Studio interface, as you see here, right? And so right within our Synapse, we can actually go in and we can save and manage our Power BI reports, similar to the way that you're familiar with doing with Power BI Desktop. So simply by linking your Power BI to your Synapse workspace, you're able to utilize the power of Power BI in this singular interface. So in a data-driven workplace, organizational information really is its lifeblood. So unifying data experiences is critical to fully maximizing your enterprise data. And with Azure Synapse Analytics, Microsoft has created a unified experience that provides a comprehensive analytics and a cloud data platform, really that meets the needs of such a diverse group of enterprise roles, that quite frankly, all information workers everywhere are really empowered with this platform. However, in today's climate, we need to be able to provide more insight from our enterprise data to remain competitive. So what we need to be able to provide a solution, as transformative as the workplace has become, we believe Azure Synapse Analytics is that platform. So, as we'll dive through the day, we really want to, over the last few weeks, demonstrated the Synapse Summer solutions really provided you an overview of the outcomes. But like I said earlier, today we really want to take a moment to kind of walk through the actual solutions itself and give you a peek behind the scenes of the data science that went into that. And so what I'll do now, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And so we'll take a few minutes to transition, to my desktop from our slide deck here, and really just have a walkthrough. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share and hand it over to our data scientist, Riwat Sharma, who's just really going to give you guys an idea of what went into creating our social media experiments. So give me 1 second here. So what we're taking a look at right now, as we kind of go through, we're just walking through really kind of the overview of the Synapse workspace. And one of the things that we mentioned before, you can see SQL on demand and common data, really just having the specific SQL pools and Apache Spark pools and being able to navigate and perform the work with this. And so as we'll see here in a little bit, we'll be able to kind of walk through and take a look with Riwat and kind of understand how, the power of Synapse is really utilized within our notebook. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to our notebook here and really just kind of walk through a couple of the items that we saw earlier, right? And so right now, what everyone's taking a look at, this is really kind of the home area of our Synapse workspace. And so, as we mentioned before, here on the left side, you'll see our activity hubs. So we can navigate here to the data hub. And really what this does is it gives us an overview, as I just showed, our SQL pool. So you can also see our serverless pool, as we just saw, which is SQL on demand, and of course, our Spark pool. And we mentioned before some of the link services, right? And so whether it's Cosmos DB, our data lake, or really some of the integration data sets, we're able to work with those as link services right here within our Data Hub tab. The next thing in which we'll see and really spend a lot of time here on are really kind of the develop tab, which is essentially our SQL scripts, our notebooks, and our Power BI. And a lot of the experiments that we've kind of gone through over the last few months have really been based right here within our Develop tab. And what I'll go ahead and do right now is I'll actually go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to let our data scientist, Riwat Sharma, kind of walk us through some of those experiments and give you guys a little bit a behind the scenes peek of the science that went into coming up with these solutions. So Riwat, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Hi, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So today I'll be walking you through a solution that we built, based on the Twitter data. And what we did was basically getting the hashtags from Twitter and doing sentiment analysis on that. So I'll just walk you through the solution. So like Patrick mentioned, Synapse gives us capability to create our notebooks, connect with the data warehouse and everything. So it's just like you can integrate all the services in one. So what we have done is, so this is a pipeline that basically is used for end-to-end data flow. And it starts with getting a hashtag. So this is basically if I want to search for a hashtag, this is reading that from a table so that it's like dynamic. It will read that value from table. So you can say, I want to search for this hashtag. It will do the search and it will do, this is just the max ID so that, we can have that incremental load happening every day. So if you're pulling data from Twitter on daily basis, you don't want to pull the data that you already have. So this takes care of that. Then we have this notebook. So what happens in this notebook is it calls the Twitter API. It gives the max ID that it has. If there's no max ID, it will pull everything from the scratch and it will store it in data lake. So this step basically stores the file in data lake, and it has all the Twitter data that it has been able to pull so far. Then we have this get sentiment score. So here what we are doing is once we have that data from Twitter, we'll do data cleansing and everything, and then we're passing it to cognitive services. So we making use of Azure cognitive services, and with the help of that, so we can basically tag any hashtag related stuff as being positive, negative, or neutral. So cognitive services returns us back a string saying that it's this is the probability of it being positive, negative, or the neutral. So once we are done with this, we basically are loading it back into warehouse. So this step, it puts it into a table in warehouse. So we'll be also showing you how then we are creating reports on top of that. So this gives us this is all done in Synapse. So everything, right from start to end, we are connecting to tables to get these hashtags. We are loading data back into the tables in warehouse. We are making use of notebooks, and we are using Python code within that. So it's all the activities that are happening. They're happening within just one single pane. And so we also have so once we have all the data, so we have created this Power BI report. So we are visualizing that based on the hashtag that we had. So we had these filters. So what we are basically showing here is, the percentage of people who tweeted in positive for a certain hashtag. And here we're showing it for these 4 hashtags. So if you can do drill downs. So it's just everything that Power BI gives you. So you can also view that within the Synapse. So that's the power of Synapse. You can play with your data. You can write your Python scripts, and you can also visualize over here.
And Riwa, and certainly as you're really kind of going through this, I think one of the things that really becomes apparent, so right now, obviously as we kind of take a look, within our internal Synapse workspace here, we have a number of data roles within our company who really works with Synapse, and really kind of the ease of being able to go back and forth. So you mentioned previously being able to perform some of the transformations using a notebook. In terms of being able to kind of utilize that notebook, would anyone that have access to Synapse be able to access and maybe provide input or maybe update that notebook as you're working on it?
Yeah, so that's where it is very helpful. So you have that collaboration, so everybody can work on it. So you have a notebook, and I can give access to anybody, and you can just do your coding and everything, and get back to that. So you can create notebook, and simultaneously people can work on it. So once done, you can deploy your notebook, and you can use it within a pipeline to so that it's a part of an activity, end-to-end workflow, and then once it finishes, you can basically visualize the data from here only.
Interesting. And Rawad, let me ask you this, because we've certainly seen this with a number of customers, particularly those who may have already have a business intelligence or machine learning or AI strategy. Maybe they've used previously notebooks from Jupyter, or say in a Databricks, right?
Yep.
Is it easy to be able to incorporate some of those legacy machine learning experiments within Azure Synapse?
Yeah. So it is almost similar to a Jupyter notebook that we already work on. So anything that you've done, it's not Jupyter related. So what I'm saying is, if you've done something in Python, you can easily bring it here and start coding. It gives you that platform. There are no limitations. You can import the libraries, you can have the dependencies, then you can start your scripting work. It could be part of automation as well. So, it gives you access to the machine learning libraries. You can start working with the machine learning thing. If you have a Jupyter notebook, you just need to, if you have a Databricks notebook, you can bring it here. So the code and everything, because it gives you that access, you can run, you can write in PySpark, you can write in Spark SQL and everything. So you can basically, rewrite your code over here. The only difference would be how Databricks accesses a database. I think that you have to mount the storage and everything, but over here, it's pretty simple because it's already integrated.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So let me ask you this: with having that integration now, let's say we're able to kind of migrate some of that legacy code over here. Would we, once we're able to train and have our model, available, would we also be able to deploy and make that available from Synapse?
Yeah, Patrick, that's pretty easy. That is where I think Azure has made our life pretty easy. So once you have a model and you have kind of deployed it, you can deploy it as a web service and you can do everything from this pane only. So once you have a machine learning experiment, you can go to that experiment and it tells you, where do you want to deploy it? If you want to deploy it on an AKS container, ACI container, you're free to do that. And it gives you back the endpoint through which, you'll be able to access your machine learning model. So it makes your life pretty easy. You don't have to, worry, I have my model ready, but how do I use it? So it gives you that, ease. You just have to go out there and it's, click, click, click. Deployed as a model, you want a container, you want a cluster, provision a AKS cluster. It gives you an endpoint, access it and everything. You want to use that in real-time streaming. You have that endpoint. You can use that anywhere you want. So it makes your life pretty easy. Yeah. I think from it covers everything, Patrick. So, if you are from a data side, whether it is machine learning, it gives you your, ML Studio. You don't need different tools for different technologies. So what I'm saying is, if you want to do ETL, you don't have to depend on something. It's all here in Synapse. You want to do ETL, you have Synapse Pipeline.
Interesting.
If you want to do machine learning, you have the machine learning notebook, wherein it gives you deployment capabilities as well. So if you want to, create a warehouse, it has the, DWH is kind of integrated within Synapse.
Interesting. And wow, we've certainly talked a lot about machine learning and really kind of big data analytics. But certainly, if we're talking about being able to have this unified data platform, and if we're maybe talking about maybe data citizens or citizen developers, folks that just really want to run a query and say maybe they don't want to utilize, the huge, awesome power, if you will, of a SQL pool. Is there any solution to where users can come in here and maybe just run a simple query and not have to worry about utilizing the power of a computer of a pool?
Yeah, Patrick. So there's SQL on demand that is there. So what it basically means is you have anything lying on your data lake. It could be unstructured data. So what we're talking is unstructured data. You have a file and you just want to run a query on that file to see, like what it contains. You want to just do a quick analysis on top of that. So Synapse gives you that capability. You can just go to that file, use open row set and create it as a table, and all of that in a click. So you just click, open that notebook in SQL script, it opens it here. And then you have that option of, saying that you want to just use SQL, you don't want to use SQL pool, you want to do SQL on demand. So that's like paper execution. So, you can use that power of, Synapse, and it can scale up and down automatically. So if, you have a file that's like 2 gigabytes and you want to do some analysis, SQL on demand, it will scale up. And if you have a file that's like 30 MB, it does not need to scale up that, that much. So it takes care of everything and you pay for only that execution time that you are using with that file.
Interesting. And one of the things you mentioned there previously, Ruat, where, you're kind of almost, when you describe the data lake, it was almost kind of having as a file server, a file store, if you will. And now it seems like with SQL on demand, you've empowered citizen developers or data citizens within an organization to be able to maybe even query that unstructured data and be able to utilize it that way. Is that certainly one of those use cases?
Yeah, that certainly is. And I think that's the beauty of Synapse. So you have structured and unstructured data. Earlier, if you want to query structured data, you log into SQL, you query the table, right? And if you have to do something on file or something, you need to go to Hadoop or something and do that. But here, it all is in one place. So, from this like workspace, you have the databases, right? You can do anything using SQL pool, SQL on demand, and Spark, but also it gives you access to that that story that we were talking about. So if you want to analyze any file, you can just come here, click on it, and it will open it on SQL on demand, and you can just query it the way you want.
Interesting. So now we are able to kind of utilize that, directory structure, if you will, almost like we would a database, and be able to query against that file. And in terms of the files, the support out there, is it JSON, CSV? What are some of the files that you see that you'd be able to perform some of those queries against, Ruad?
Yeah, so all the common file formats that are currently used in big data world. So you can do Parquet. You want to analyze Parquet, you can do that. CSV, you can do that. JSON. So it supports all those files that you normally use in Hadoop.
Interesting.
So I would say it is a combination of big data and a data warehouse with capabilities of ML and analytics. So I think it's everything in one. You talk about data. I think this is your one-stop solution.
Perfect. And Ruad, I appreciate you kind of guiding us through that. I was curious, Sam, if there was anyone that had any questions about what we've walked through and some of the things we've identified so far. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just certainly at this point, if we can maybe take a look back, Ruad, at the Power BI piece there. And I know when you're able to kind of perform some of the queries on it. If we can you just take a look at the tweets by sentiment? And so some of the data that we're kind of taking a look at right now, I think, as you mentioned before, this is really all of the output after you've been able to, utilize cognitive services, and specifically within cognitive service. What was the API that you utilized for this?
So, Patrick, cognitive services is like pre-built and pre-trained model that Azure provides, and the accuracy and everything that they give because of the amount of data that they've used to create these models. That's huge, and it's pretty. I would say you talk about the cognitive services, you talk about computer vision. The accuracy is like 90-95%. So what it takes is you need to have data in a certain format, and it is like you have to do some cleaning and everything, and then have the data in a particular format that cognitive services wants it, and then you basically call that API and pass your data. So like there's a limit with cognitive services. This text analytics is that every time you call it, you can pass it only 1,000 records. So that's something you have to be mindful of. So you just pass the 1,000 records, and it will return you back a response saying that for each ID that you passed, what is the sentiment score.
Interesting.
So it will give you back that score. Yeah. And then you can do it in batches, because every time you have to pass just 1,000 records. So if you have, say, like 100,000, you might have to do it in batches of 1,000 each and run it like 100 times.
Interesting. And Ruad, in terms of when you're identifying, utilizing batches, how quick can you see a response back from Cognitive Services API?
Patrick, it's pretty fast. So every time I pass 1,000 rows, I got a response back within a second or two. It's pretty fast, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And Ruad, I really appreciate this, because I think certainly over the last few months, as we've gone through this, we've really kind of focused in on the social media platforms and really presented the outcomes. And I think what you've guided us through here just now, really kind of take a look behind the scenes. And I think really kind of the overwhelming takeaway is the fact that you were able to conduct most, if not all of your experiment right within this unified platform of Synapse.
Yeah, and I think it gives you that flexibility. So if somebody thinks that Databricks is what they want to use, they have that flexibility. Though you can accomplish everything that you can in Databricks with Synapse Notebook, but it still gives you that pretty easy integration. I'll say you just create a link service, and you can connect with the external services as well within Synapse.
Perfect. Okay. And I'll go ahead and turn it over and see if anybody else has any questions. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But Rawat, I appreciate you walking us through, just taking a look behind the scenes at, what you went through and being able to extract and, certainly, load and transform that data, as well as, visualize the outcome from your experiment. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. And so what and what we'll do now is, of course, as we mentioned before, we've certainly been able to, go through over the last few months, just kind of going through, looking at utilizing Synapse, but with a focus on the Synapse platforms. What we just did is we walked through our Twitter sentiment analysis solution and really just discussed how we were able to utilize the Cognitive Services Notebook, and then being able to visualize that data in Power BI. So with that said, I'd really like to thank everyone that was able to join us for our webinar series. We were really happy to present that data to everyone and really kind of go over our process, as well as explore the full power of Azure Synapse Analytics. So with that said, we thank you, appreciate it, and take care. Bye-bye.